Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Elastic Live user group. I am Jay Miller, no longer your technical host, just the person talking with the mic. Had a lot of fun last week, but that's all in the past. We're going to talk about what we have today, which is an amazing guest, someone that whose talks I've heard a couple of times now, who's definitely a very interesting story about using the Elastic Stack kind of outside of those day-to-day work responsibilities, but also in super important ways. Andreas Helmer. Andreas, how are you doing?
I'm awesome. Thank you very much for having me. This is it's very flattering what you're
I,
saying about me. I don't get that a lot.
oh, you should. Like, I will say that there have been so many people in Elastic that have just been like, "Hey, who's the guy that did that talk?" And I was like, "That's Andreas." Like, yes, hold on. Let me. When we were putting this all
Yeah,
together, like the first person, we were like, "Who should we have guests from outside the company?" I was like, "I know just the person. Hold on, let me find that email." But yeah, tell everybody a bit about yourself and just kind of like your story with using the Elastic Stack and how everything came to be.
sure. So, yeah, you got my name right, but my friends call me Dre, as in doctor, but I'm not nearly as cool. Um, yeah, I my journey with Elastic started a couple of years ago at work. So, at work, at the time, I was still in support, doing all kinds of fun things with Logstash, pulling apart logs and turning them into weird visualizations and things like that. But I then eventually went to the Elastic Engineer training and to my first ElasticCon. This was 2017, 18, I think. And there I saw the machine learning demonstration for the first time. I think this was like the first release of machine learning. And I thought it was really cool. And then this idea just popped into my head, and I asked the presenter who was there, I was like, can I do this with like any data? And he's like, oh, yeah, yeah. I was like, well, I generate my own personal data as well. Like I wear this thing on my arm, which generates glucose data every 5 minutes. And he's like, yeah, that's regular interval data. That would totally work. And so that's when this whole idea of using Elastic Search to gather and analyze my personal health data. Oh, because I forgot to mention, I have type 1 diabetes, and monitoring my blood glucose is really, really important. So doing this is just a different way to use what is normally a stack to look at CPU metrics, RAM, all that kind of stuff, security. And I said, hey, let's make this a little bit more personal and turn this data into information I can use on a daily basis. So now at work, we're using Elastic for a lot of other more traditional things, but I'm continuing this project off and on every couple of months to keep up with it and see what I can do. Fun.
It's always interesting when, there's two things there. One, there's data everywhere. Like there's
Yeah.
data collected, there's data being grabbed that people don't even realize is available to them. I think
Yeah.
when I started Elastic, one of the first things that I saw was a great demo on how to like index all of your web history from like web browsers and how like they keep that history and you could actually index it and do some full text searching on like stuff. But one of the things that a lot of people have tried to do is better health metric
Mhm.
tracking. And, there are a lot of apps and tools out there that have just kind of, and it's improved over time. But what has kind of kept you in the Elastic Stack in terms of health management and like tracking of glucose levels and all of the other things
Yep.
that you do with type 1 diabetes?
Well, well, that's actually the biggest reason why I use the Elastic Stack is because I wanted to control my own data that I generate, because it's not just my glucose sensor that generates data. It's my Apple Watch that counts my steps and heartbeats and stuff like that. I have a tile for this little device. Whoops, where is it? Better not lose that. I need that.
I have a tile tracker for the thing that I can't find at the
Yes, there
moment.
it is. Yeah, exactly. So this little device communicates with my insulin pump, but the tile also generates GPS data. And hey, Elastic can use GPS and geodata, so that's a fun thing to use. Um, so there's all sorts of disparate pieces of data that I'm generating from everywhere, and using Elastic, I can control how I want to put that all together and display it in one unified environment, which is really the ultimate thing. Is I hate logging into 20 different services to see all of my information, and I'm sure most people do because I don't like remembering passwords or any of that stuff as well. And yeah, so that's ultimately what it comes down to is having control of my data to turn into information and seeing it in one place.
So speaking of having it in a bunch of different places, let's talk about some of the tools that you're using within the Elastic Stack.
Sure.
So I've seen some of the presentations. I know that you are like the subject matter expert when it comes to Canvas presentations.
Well, Canvas is a lot of fun to use, and while I wouldn't recommend it to use as your PowerPoint replacement tool for everyday presentations, it's definitely a really neat tool to do some cool stuff with. Like during my diabetes presentation, where I show this entire process that I've gone through, my entire story. It's very useful for showing visual data at a glance, which I love about Canvas. So I'm definitely playing around with that. It's not my main dashboard, which I go to when I'm looking at my diabetes information, but it's definitely fun to play around with. But Logstash was my first love, still is. It's the thing I know the best, and it's the biggest thing that's running. So it's running on my NAS in the basement. I've got a Logstash container, which hooks into my Elastic Cloud instance, where I've got the pipelines the pipeline configuration talking back to my NAS. And then that's where I keep all the configurations. So those are the biggest things. I haven't found a big use for any of the beats yet for doing any of this, but Logstash is the big thing that pulls most of the information together and combines it for me.
I think there would be a really good user story if we could figure out how to use Heartbeat somewhere, in the process. But that's okay. I'll talk to the engineers and see what we can do.
Maybe ping my insulin pump to see if it's working.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah,
how someone uses Heartbeat to stay alive. I love it.
Exactly,
That's great.
Everyone has a heartbeat.
But yeah, I want to turn it over to you. I know that you've brought some stuff to share and show, and
Sure.
I'm going to have a ton of questions, especially if we're talking about Logstash, because I love Logstash, and I wish I had like 20 more use cases for it. And I will remind everybody that this is an AMA, so feel free to throw your questions into the chat. Everyone's allowed to chat. Everyone's allowed to have a good time. If you have a question that maybe doesn't fit what we're talking about here, you can always throw that up at discuss.elastic.co. And as always, I know that Andreas has presented a few different times at meetups, but we're also going to have a bunch of these coming up in the future. So make sure to check out community.elastic.co as well. But I'm going to jump this over to you. I'm going to let you do your thing.
Sure. Okay. So let me that screen. Sure, we'll go to this screen first. So this is my Canvas snippet about where I discussed and presented my my diabetes presentation, as I like to call it. But for those of you who haven't seen it before, I just want to quickly go over about how my entire setup works. So what I've got is I've got my devices, which are hanging on to me, which are communicating through my phone with a service called Night Scout. And Night Scout is a really, really cool initiative that was started by the type 1 diabetes community to do kind of like the same thing that I'm doing with getting all of your data into the cloud and allowing anybody to monitor glucose information. So it's a very, very similar, and it's a fantastic service, and lots and lots and lots of people use it. I'm just taking it the step further by pulling the data out of Night Scout and then combining it with other services like Google Fit and my Tile was the two big examples, like my watch, and then combining it all into Logstash and then dumping that into Elasticsearch and Kibana. So I've got a few different pipelines of Logstash running that are controlled through my cloud Kibana instance, and that then runs locally on my server at home, as I mentioned, and combines it back together and fires it up to Elasticsearch. And then that's really what drives the entire system is this Logstash at the center. So this is, if I had to talk about anything really important, it's this piece of software right here, because this is what's turning my data into stuff that I can use. And let me show you my dashboard. And then this is kind of what the end result looks like. So this is a live view of the last 7 days of my blood glucose information. It's all right. It's not the greatest. I had a few unhappy moments where my blood glucose was at 18. Because I live in, I should have mentioned earlier, I live in Canada, Ontario, Canada, and we use a slightly different blood glucose scale for those of you that might be familiar with blood sugars. So we measure it in millimoles per liter. So where the target is between essentially 4 and 10. So the majority of my data should end up between these bars right here, which most of the time it does. And but if you want that in the standard that the US uses in milligrams per deciliter, you multiply that by 18. So I'm showing it here as well. So in 18 times 18, that's in the 300s something. So this is a really high blood glucose reading, and I know exactly what was going on here. It may have been pizza. But anyway, but this is the kind of information that I can use to help me figure out what I'm eating. Is it working well for me? For instance, here I had some chocolate last night, and a couple nights ago, and I took some and I measured it at carbs, 95 grams of carbs, but I took some insulin here as well, 2 units, and it looks like it kept my blood glucose relatively steady for the time afterwards, which is great. So that kind of information is really valuable for me to use. Here I had some ice cream. Geez, what's with the sweets, Andreas? Man, oh man. Oh, here's a fruit salad, which I ate, and I took some insulin for it. And it also kept me relatively steady. So lately, I've been a good boy. I've been doing this stuff pretty well, and what I've done here is I've combined a couple of different indexes to show the annotations for my treatment index, which is where I'm pulling all of the different food categories and items that I'm taking, which comes from my app on my phone, which controls my insulin pump, and that's a different index, which is then feeding into the my blood glucose measurement index here as well. So I'm combining a couple of different graphs in the time series visual builder here. And,
Andreas, you mentioned just kind of the food that you are having. Are you logging, your food regularly for that? Is that in here, or is that kind of outside of this?
Nope, that is all part of it. So the way it works is here on my phone. This is called the Loop app. And if I go back, no, it's fine. No, that's okay. There's nothing really to show, but the Loop app on my phone is one of those community-driven initiatives by the Type 1 community, because although there's a lot of really cool technology that the pharmaceutical companies are coming up with for insulin pump technology and blood glucose monitoring, it's just too slow, to be honest. And the hashtag is #WeAreNotWaiting is the mantra that this DIY type of community has adopted, and some really brilliant programmers have gotten together and made apps like Loop that allow my insulin pump to communicate with my phone, with my CGM, and it makes adjustments automatically on the fly that then helps regulate my blood sugar so that I stay in a good range all the time. And it's absolutely life-changing for me, because now I can sleep at night. I don't have to worry too much about getting up in the middle of the night to check my blood sugar, or have hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar, where that needs to be treated with juice or candy or glucose tabs, or I don't have to worry about really high blood sugar for extended periods of time, because then the Loop app goes in and tells my insulin pump to give me a little shot of insulin or a bolus. So there's a and there's a lot of insulin pumps that are doing this right now as well, and they have their own proprietary technology, but the level of customization and control that these companies are putting out just isn't there as what the Type 1 community has gone, because as you can imagine, the community is moving a lot faster to the demand of the community than a pharmaceutical company is that has to go through FDA regulations and Health Canada approvals and stuff like that. So that's what I'm logging all of. That's where all this information like food comes in. So here's pizza, my little icon for ice cream. That is all the information that I enter into the Loop app. And so I get the icon for ice cream. I get the number of carbs which that ice cream was. And then the bar down here shows me my insulin bolus, which was 2.405 units. And then it shows on the orange line shows how my levels are going afterwards. So it's really, really fantastic. And you can see all these tiny little bars. It's hard to tell. But in the bar graph down here, all these little bars, this is the Loop app making tiny adjustments for me as well. It's giving me a bunch of micro boluses to give me insulin, get me where I need to be. And so this is good to see that, hey, it's working. And the app like Loop is really what's helping me to do that. So I noticed that in the chat or in the comments section, there's somebody posted the Tidepool link, and Tidepool is yes, that's what the official Loop app is going to become. Is Tidepool has picked up the Loop app, which the DIY Loop app, and they're trying to get it into FDA approval and link it together with an Omnipod insulin pump, and so it's really, really cool. Oh, Ricardo, what does he say? My son uses Dexcom for monitoring Omnipod. Well, there's still a bunch of tasks on people's lap. Yeah, and there are a bunch of tasks. So if Ricardo, if your son is using Omnipod and he's using the Omnipod Aeros, which is the older style, not the Dash, and he's got a Dexcom, then it might be fun to look into building your own Loop app, or what's called for Android is called Android APS. So I'm not giving medical advice here at any time. It's just something fun to look into, because it does work for quite a lot of people.
But before we jump back into all of the amazing stuff that's being presented here, one of the things that I want to mention with this is why I think that having these conversations are important. Like when you start hearing about people that have the same struggles that you have, and to be clear, like type 1 diabetes is a struggle. Like that is like you said, a lot of this is community driven, because you couldn't wait for pharmaceutical companies or corporations that have to come up with a monetization process for this to work. So it's good to see that the developer wing of the T1D community have been able to say like, hey, look, let's just start building this stuff and let's make it work and find people within the community that can continue to advocate for it. I have a few friends that all have type 1 diabetes, and from artificial pancreases to like a ton of other things, like there's a lot of community driven thought and exercises that come around that area of just development.
Oh yeah, and the latest one that I read about was there's also something called the Open Insulin Project happening. I haven't read too much into it, so I don't want to say too much about it, but it looks really cool about these chemists and bioengineers that are trying to make their own insulin and stuff. And so that's another community initiative. Not nearly as easy to do as building your own app, but it speaks as a comment to the entire healthcare industry. Is just sometimes stuff is just a little bit too slow, and we have to. There's a lot of smart people out there, and they can get together and do things a little bit faster at their own risk.
So I want to hear more. I see a map there, and I love the mapping. I want to know more about this map over here.
All right. So this right here isn't working too well right now, but I can definitely try and show you the way that it's supposed to work. So on with my tile, with my little Riley Link, which is the device that communicates with my insulin pump and my phone, I've got that tile. I signed up for the tile premium service, and that allows me access to their API. And so with that API here, I'm going to pull my MobaX term up. Here, maybe I can zoom this in a little bit. So Google Fit. Where was it? I don't remember what it's called. Did I put it in the right place? Shoot, I think I must be in the wrong spot. Anyway, I'll try and find it here on the side. But there is. Oh no, I know what I can do. I can show in my here. Nope, I don't have it here either. I wonder why. Oh, I know why, because it shows my API token and password and all that stuff. I don't want to display that. That's why I didn't upload it. But anyway, I have a script written that what it does is it queries the API for the tile, and every time I give myself a bolus. So I've got Logstash. I'm going to try and pull up the Logstash config. .d.
While you're doing that, I will ask, the GitHub repo that you have out there, is this kind of like open source for people to go and take a look at, or?
Yeah, sure. If people want to, this is some of the information on how I get like heartbeat and step information from the Google Fit API. It's a bit of a hack together to kind of make it all work, but it works for me. Essentially, all I do is I generate a token from the Google Fit API, then query the Fit endpoint to get step information and heartbeat information for a specific time interval, and then ingest that back into Elasticsearch. So it allows me to essentially see all of the different information that I'm capturing on my Apple Watch and my phone. So it's kind of neat that way. So I'm trying to figure out where I put the. Maybe that's why it's not working, because I can't find the the configuration files anywhere. Huh. So maybe I should check that. Anyway, I'll find that, and I just don't know why it's not working right now. Maybe it's under treatments. Maybe I combined it with treatments. Hold on. Yeah, I know I'm not sharing. I'm doing this on the side here, so it. Oh, it is. Okay, it is. Okay, good. Here.
That's why I like doing these live streams, because if we were doing like a live presentation, you're on slides, someone asks a question, you're like, that's a good question, and we have to completely derail. But I mean, it's a live stream, so we're able to have fun and just chat and give you time to go find the right files.
I swear I know my own stuff. Yeah. Okay. So what happens in my Logstash configuration here is when an event comes in, there's a condition. So if the event type is a correction bolus or it's a meal bolus, meaning that if my pump is doing is giving, or if I manually give myself some insulin, or I just ate some food and I'm giving myself some insulin for that, then I have this Perl script which goes out and queries the tile API for the last known location of my tile. And I know that's not necessarily going to be super accurate because this only updates every 15 minutes or so, but just to have some fun with it, it works well enough. And then I take that API information back, change it into a location, and then it gets ingested into Elasticsearch along with the event for that bolus that I gave myself. So now I can see where on the map I've been giving myself insulin. And back when it was working, you could see up here where my office is in Waterloo. That's where it would pop up, and down here in this area where I live, there would be the majority. But then sometimes I can see like, oh, I was at a restaurant, and that restaurant had that's where I ate some food, and so a little blip would appear on my map in terms of where I ate food. So this was working. I haven't gotten it to work since, and I haven't really spent much time looking into it, as I've spent most of my free time playing with my 1-year-old daughter. So that's a little bit more important right now because Loop is taking care of me otherwise. But yeah, anyway, that's the idea behind it, and it does work, believe me. I wish I could show you, but I just can't right now.
No worries at all. I'm sorry for making it, bringing it up. I had an immediate, like, here's an app idea. Like, it's, you can have everyone that has type 1 diabetes implementing a process like this, and then you could find all of the best places to eat if you have type 1 diabetes based on glucose outputs and location data.
Oh my, that's a little
and places to avoid.
There. Yeah. It's like we could put a heat map on the map that shows like where all the high glucose happens, and then where all the yeah, that would be interesting.
All the ideas.
Yeah. But the cool thing is, like, I keep mentioning this Loop app on my phone and the Tidepool thing, but it is an open source project. So if I wanted to learn how to code in Swift, which is on my to-do list, then I could definitely go in and write my own procedures in the official Loop app and build my own branch of it, and then have it upload all this data directly into my Elasticsearch instance, which I think would be a lot of fun. So that's something I want to do as well, and maybe even have it mine like the health app on my iPhone, or I don't know. There's so many cool things. There's so much data happening. So you know what? I've had good success with McDonald's. You know why? Because they're really accurate in terms of their nutritional information. Yeah, it's high fat food, which can be hard to manage sometimes, but at least you have good information in terms of how much a hamburger is, how many carbs that is, and so you can input that into my insulin pump, and then it usually keeps me relatively steady. Just like the food, the ice cream that I hear, this was an ice cream cone from McD's, and it worked really well. Like I didn't go too far above outer range, so I don't know. I like that.
So now I want to know how good poutine is in terms of this, because I mean, every time I get to go up to like Vancouver area, like that is a must. Like I have to go get poutine.
Yeah, well, poutine is a Quebec thing, and if you want the best, you got to go over to Quebec. So that's the other side of the country. But I know what you mean. It's the worst.
I'm in San Diego. I'll take whatever I can get. Like
good.
That's like people going to like Mexican restaurants, and it's like, no, I live in San Diego. We go to Mexico and actually get Mexican food.
Exactly. No, I I get it, but high fat, high carb foods, they're the worst to manage when it comes to type 1 diabetes. And something that isn't known a lot is hyperglycemia, which is high blood glucose. It can really mess with your emotions, and you get really grumpy and tired. And my wife like stays 20 feet away from me, like if I'm really bad. So I, while I can eat anything and everything that I want, I generally try and avoid high fat foods and things like that. But if I wanted to, I totally could, and uh, I have the tools to help me manage it.
So
It's cool.
speaking of that, you mentioned kind of an idea of you've learned.
Yeah.
Has there been any like breakout ideas or breakout, thoughts that you've collected from this data?
And that's what I was trying to do with these long-term graphs down here. It was actually good that I scrolled down, because I want to see if particular days of the week or different activity that I do can help me manage my diabetes a little bit better. And definitely in the past, what has really helped is the high carb foods, and to help me straighten out this line here. And I've used these graphs to help me identify that. But really in the pre-COVID, and it's still happening now for some reason, but pre-COVID, my Wednesdays were always a big drop. And so were my Thursdays. And I had figured out that was because of the martial arts that I do on those days. The club is closed right now, so I'm not doing that as much anymore. But information like that has kind of helped me group it together and show me, okay, all of my Wednesdays were much lower than my Mondays and Tuesdays. And then I can go in and zero in on that, and then look at hours of the day as well, and look at, did I have that graph? No, I think I got rid of it because it was kind of messy. So stuff like that has really helped me figure it out. And my doctor also loves, this information, because generally we look at just day-to-day graphs. But getting aggregations together and looking at trends and patterns also are really important, because this is a long-term disease that I'm stuck with, and the best way that I can manage it in the long term and over a period of time, and by looking at aggregations, is the better my outcome and life expectancy is going to be. So it's really cool. Oh no, this is the hourly graph. So yeah, I gotta check and see.
Have there been any like machine learning uses or thoughts that you wanted to go into?
Yeah, I played around with it. I turned it off for a while because my Elastic cluster in the cloud here was kind of chugging along a bit. And really the machine learning thing was just kind of for fun. So back when I wrote my first blog article a couple years ago about managing type 1 diabetes with the Elastic machine learning, I did some really cool things in terms of the forecasting. So what I did is I had some CGM data, and I had it forecast for a week. And then I waited that week and then looked at the forecast, and I saw that it made a prediction that at that random particular time that I was looking at, it would be at just under 6 millimoles per liter. And then when I looked at the actual value, it was like, oh yeah, it was actually at 6 millimoles per liter. So this was a fun thing to do with the machine learning, because it's not generally regular data that I'm generating. I'm not eating the exact same thing every day. I'm not taking the exact same number of steps every day. The outlier detection isn't that big of a value to me, which comes with the Kibana machine learning, but it's just something fun to play around with, just because I am generating data on such a consistent basis. And this was just a neat little tidbit that I found. So it was fun, and I'm going to continue to explore it a little bit more as I hear there are new machine learning features coming out in the future as well. So this is a never-ending project for me, of course.
Oh, I bet. And I know with machine learning, I guess some of the things you're always looking for are consistency so that you can find the inconsistencies,
Yep.
but then also this level of just scale of data.
Yeah.
And I always want to play around with it, but I can never think about like what's a large but consistent data set that I can work with. So like biodata, like that's actually good. I mean, the fact that you said you're collecting data about once every 15 minutes,
every 5 minutes.
Every 5 minutes. So wow, that's a lot of data. How are you managing all of that data? Because I mean, it has to be a lot. I mean, if you've been doing this, I mean, this post is a few years old, so you've been collecting this stuff for years now. How are you kind of maintaining it?
So for the most part, I'm just letting my Elastic Cloud instance do what it does best. When I originally set it up, I didn't really know much about like the ILM rules or anything like that. So my index management is kind of a mess. I've got way too many shards for the little amount of data that I've got listed in here. So while it is a lot of data, there's a lot of data points that are going into this. I really just let it do its thing. I haven't. Yeah, I go around and I play with it every once in a while and clean it up. Like here, I tried to make a 2.0 index and consolidate all the data into one index and apply some ILM rules to this, but I kind of got stuck doing something else. So this is still a personal project. It's not something that I need to do because I am getting good information out of it as it is right now. But ideally, yeah, I'm just letting Elasticsearch do what it does best, and it's just store the data. And it's quite little because each JSON document is only, I don't know, 300-400 characters in length, so it's pretty small, and there's only a few fields in it. So I suspect I can keep this running for quite a long time on the freest of the free, not freest of the free, but the lowest of the low Elastic Cloud instances that I've got running. So it works.
That's awesome, and it's good to see that like the data itself is pretty small and easy to maintain. We have another comment here. It says, "Do you think that data streams would help?" And again, it might just be like the data itself is so small that there hasn't been much of a thought going into like, how do I maintain this, or how do I best optimize it to last 40 years? But
yeah, and in that case, I don't really care that much about the data. Yes, I like having data as just because of my hoarder personality. I like having this information stick around for forever and ever, so I can see, hey, what was my blood sugar on December 12th, 2017? It's not really useful anymore because this information, I care more about the short-term impact of like, where's my blood sugar going and what did it do within the last couple of days or maybe even the weeks. But anything older than 3 months, which is what I would review with my doctor, I could probably technically throw away because I'm probably never going to look at that. But as to what regarding the data stream question, yes, this is time series data. So I'm sure I could convert it to that. This is one of those things that I kind of play around with. I know data streams is a relatively new thing, so it's not something I've played around with much yet. But I'm sure I could, because yeah, most of the information that I'm displaying here is built on the time series visual builder. Like this is the most important graph from it. So this is the one I use the most.
So I only have like one more question in terms of like the stack.
Sure.
What about alerting? Like, have you played around with the alerting aspect at all?
Yes and no. So I have played around with it, but I don't use it on a regular basis, just because there is a bit of a delay when it comes to getting this information into Elasticsearch. What I could do is set up some sort of maybe a roll-up index or average and look at what the average was over a particular time, and then have it alert me that way. And that's what I had played around with before, but it's just too slow. If I need to take action regarding my my blood glucose levels, it needs to be information that's available to me right now. It's most likely going to be an acute event. And if I know that my blood sugar is rising, I don't need spam coming to my email saying, "Hey, your blood sugar is high." It's like, I know, I'm already grumpy. I can tell you that it's high. So I I don't need something else alerting me to that fact. But let's say if I wasn't an adult, or maybe there was a child involved, then yes, I think it could be very useful to create an alert to send maybe to their parents and say, "Hey, for the last hour, little Timmy has been really high in his blood sugar, so maybe a correction needs to be done." So that there I could see it being useful. But for me, because I'm my phone literally runs my insulin pump. It's always there. I can look at my home screen and see what my blood glucose is. So that is more valuable to me right away. But yeah, so that's where I haven't played around with the alerting features too much. But there's definitely a lot of things that I could play around with.
So I want to remind everybody this is also an AMA. So if y'all have any questions for Andreas, let me know. You just put them in the chat, and we'll be happy to ask them. But this is great. Like, this is awesome. You mentioned using Elastic Cloud. Are you managing everything now in Elastic Cloud, and just or do you have some things locally?
Nope. So the only thing that I've got locally is my Synology NAS, which is running my Logstash container, which is running great. This is running quite well, and I like it. And it's very low impact, and although it's sucking up a lot of RAM right now, but that's okay. Yeah, so for me, this is the only local instance thing that I've got running, and everything else is then publishing up to my my Elastic Cloud instance. So if because then it's the one less thing I personally have to manage. Especially when updates happen, I can just hit a single button and it updates my entire cluster for me, which I think is really, really cool. Or I need to allocate a little bit more memory, and it's only costing me like $20 Canadian a month, which is I think is quite reasonable based on the amount of value that it is giving back to me. So plus I get, if I did want to play with all the machine learning and alerting and advanced features, I don't have to go and play the hokey pokey with a trial license on my own personal at-home machine. Not that I haven't circumvented the license agreement by doing that and deleting clusters.
I don't know what you're talking about. We're just going to keep going. That said, you were talking about utilizing some of the new features. Are there any features that have come out in like 7.13 or recent updates that you've wanted to spend more time with or play around with more?
Yeah, so I have played around with whatchamacallit, the lens a little bit in terms of making new graphs, just to see, hey, how do particular things correlate. So that's been a lot of fun to play around with. And hold on, is it under? No, so I wonder if I still have it listed here. Type lens. No, I didn't save it. I was playing around with this the other day. I was creating a lens visualization just to compare like carb entries to insulin in order to help me figure out what a better ratio would be for my insulin to carb ratio. So for every 10 grams of carbs, how much insulin do I need to take? That's a really important metric to figure out. So using a lens to do that was actually really helpful, because I could just click and drag and stuff in right away and try and correlate that information. So that's been a lot of fun. And I know Lens has been around for quite a while, but that's been one thing. Like pardon me, but like, what was the newest thing of 7.13? I thought that was all like security stuff and like alerting. I can't think of anything else that would be useful in my use case.
I know Lens has kind of been one of the bigger ones in terms of Kibana and visualization. And I think the other side of that was a lot of modifications to ILM and how that worked with like searchable snapshots and just refining that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I guess shameless plug, we're going to be doing some ILM stuff coming soon. So again, community.elastic.co for that. But yeah, it's always interesting. And I know that there's always like, there's runtime fields. I think that, yes, Ricardo, thank you.
Right. Yeah.
I've learned of some stuff with runtime. I love runtime fields. Like it's been nice for me whenever working with data and I need to like push it through and just be like, I don't want to have to worry about this piece. I'll just let Elastic handle that. It's been nice. So yeah, it would be interesting to see what information you could index using runtime fields.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun too. And that's the cool thing is but the hard part is getting all of the data. Like I probably spent most of my time developing those scripts, which I talked about earlier, like the heartbeat from like the Google Fit API, and even though they're just tiny, dirty little Perl scripts, there's a lot of debugging that goes into. I'm not the greatest programmer in the world, and you can tell that just because I'm using Perl. So in general. The easy part is getting is making the visualizations and doing all the Elasticsearch stuff. The hard part is getting all the information together. So, but yeah, runtime fields would be fun.
We have another question that from Omar. It says, is anybody working on something like OmniBeat or Dexcom Beat?
Nice.
I figure if anyone would know, maybe you. Like,
not that I know of, but like I said, the biggest thing that's been really helpful has been the Night Scout page. So if you look at the Night Scout link that was posted earlier, I highly recommend looking into that, as that can take information from the Dexcom share servers and place it into a really usable API. And now, as far as Omni, I don't use Omnipod, so I don't think they have anything in the cloud or anything, but that's where Tidepool wants to get in. So Tidepool is another really good service, which is getting all of the data from a whole bunch of different insulin pumps and glucose monitors, and trying to display it in a data visualization dashboard thingy. So Tidepool is definitely the thing to look at as well. So, but at the end of the day, Tidepool doesn't support all the other pieces of data like I want to get into, like Google Fit, my Tile, my Apple Watch, and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, I'm probably just going to continue using my homegrown solution, just because I like the control of it a little bit better. But there was something else I was going to say about that. Oh yeah, but ultimately, my long-term goal is to have take the Loop app and create my own branch so that this data can get pushed up to my Elasticsearch instance automatically. So Omnipod has a bunch of REST APIs you can pull data from using HTTP. Cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, awesome. I don't use Omnipod. I have my old Medtronic pump in here, so it works for me.
I always worry. I see you like pull something out. I'm like, please just don't pull the wrong thing. Like, I don't know how that works.
It's fully disconnected now, and I have 2 hours to live now.
It's like plug it back in.
Plug back in. Yeah, exactly.
So I know you mentioned at the beginning, like Logstash plays a massive role in this. Yeah. We recently had Ryan Beismeyer on the stream to talk about kind of ECS and like the role that it's going to play for the future of Logstash. Are you using ECS, or are there plans to think about like I should be doing some ECS stuff now?
I really should be. And this brings me to my day job, because we do use and by ECS you mean Elastic Common Schema, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. So we do use ECS at my day job, and that was one of the biggest things I advocated for right at the very beginning, because a bunch of my colleagues wanted to get a bunch of KPI data ingested into an Elasticsearch instance, and I could tell right away there was 4 different teams working on this, and everybody was coming up with their own thing. And I luckily I got promoted right at the right time to a product manager, and it said, everybody stop. You're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. You're doing it right. Everybody do what these guys are doing. and we created this schema to follow along. And I've been also searching and trying to figure out a way to take other healthcare information like DICOM and HL7 and potentially turning that into an ECS compliant format. I think that would be really cool as well, because then you could take diagnostic imaging information and there is a way to convert that information into JSON, but have it converted into an ECS formatted JSON so that it can be easily ingested into an Elasticsearch instance for really, really quick searching of diagnostic data. I think that would be a fun thing to do. So that's really important. But yes, I really need to, because right now, I'm sure you saw in my my data here right now, there's a lot of renaming going on and a lot of stuff that's being put in. And if I look, convert, yeah, the things are called rate, absolute, insulin, programmed. So I know what all these things mean, but I really should convert them into something like insulin dot bolus or basal dot rate and stuff like that. So to make it a little bit more, it'll be still custom ECS, but it'll still follow the standard format, which I think will help make my life a little bit easier. But that's very geeky stuff, I think.
I think you're in the right place for anything that's kind of geeky.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I love this stuff.
Speaking of geeky, like, is there anything that you've seen that was just like maybe not mind blowing or anything, but it was just kind of like you got into some real nerdistry level stuff with this project?
The nerdiest thing was probably the tile location thing. This right here, where I was taking was getting Logstash to call the external script and then querying another API and then pulling that information back. I think that was the most nerdiest thing I could do, and then seeing it pop up on the map. That was about as uber geek as I got. Yeah, but that kind of stuff is just fun. It's fun to do because it's ultimately kind of useless information unless we get together and do like this type 1 restaurant heat map. So I don't know, but yeah. But that is like, in all seriousness, it is something I've considered doing is getting a whole bunch of people's Night Scout data and trying to just mash it all together and looking at averages and maybe adding a postal code or zip code to see, because you can do a lot of really weird data analysis, and who knows what you'll find out in the end. But and that's kind of like what I'll mention Tidepool again. That's what they're doing is if you donate your data that you're generating to them, they're trying to create this giant database of CGM information. So in order to do research or something, I don't know, that'd be a cool company to work for, I think. But anyway, yeah. Still, in terms of geekiness, geek factor, yeah, the location thing has been the most fun. In general, but really this entire project has been just one giant geek fest. Hey, what can I do and how far can I take this? Because it is a lot of fun and it's silly, but but at the end of the day, it is making my life a little bit better every day. So which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think overall it's very interesting when you can, and I'll even throw as we're wrapping up here. Not that way. There we go. It's interesting how we can have fun with stuff that is important, and matters. Like, I think that's what hopefully this live stream, this one in particular, and then future ones, we can continue to focus on more than anything, is like, hey, we want to not just tell you about what's coming up and tell you about like how to do things. And I mean, of course there will always be a place for that, and we'll definitely be doing that, but we also want to showcase like things that matter and things that are important, but also things that are fun. I will tell people I am always down to bring someone onto the stream and just chat, especially if we have like a really fun story and we can laugh and joke around about it. And sometimes even doing that with serious topics can kind of help, as long as it's done in the right nature.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing I remember is that my first doctor told me when I got first diagnosed is like, diabetes is not something you die from, it's something you live with. And that's always stuck with me. And I'm trying to make the most of it by doing everything that I know in life and using it to make myself better. Oh, that's a really sweet comment, Ricardo. Nice. Yeah. I'm so happy to hear that. And then I have a daughter now, and I hope that she doesn't take from her dad and also get type 1, even though I know there's a genetic factor with it. But I know there's a lot of kids out there, and I've helped a lot of kids set up Night Scout and do looping and stuff like that. But it's nice to hear that there's a lot of geeks out there as well.
I should ask, are there any like, I don't want to say camps, but like hackathons or hack groups that are around the T1D community that you want to promote or talk about?
I don't know if there's any big hackathons. There are some big Facebook groups. One is called CGM in the Cloud, which is probably one of the biggest ones. And the Looped group. I would highly recommend you look into those. And most of the time, you'll find people talking about how to set all these different things up. But there's a lot of discussion that goes on in them about new features as well. And so while there's nothing that I'm aware of, maybe there is. That would be really cool to see. Because a lot of us type 1s are tired of waiting. The quicker we can get together and make something that works, the better it is for all of us.
Definitely. Well, got anything else you want to share before we wrap it up?
Off the top of my head, no. I think I showed the most important things, and I got to show off all of my cool things today. So, no, this has been great. Thank you for inviting me today and letting me share my story and chat about it a little bit more, because this is really important to me, and I'm glad to other folks like Ricardo and his son as well. So thank you very much for joining. That's awesome.
Well, thank you for jumping on and being so willing to share and so eager to share as well. I think, again, stuff like this is important to highlight. And anytime we can talk about the Elastic Stack being used, outside of our day-to-day, I'm always on board, because those are like the most fun projects to look at. But then also, I mean, you've made a career and a life quite literally around the Elastic Stack. So that's really, really cool. It's really cool to showcase.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot awesome. Thanks again. Thanks, Jay. This is a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up, I want to remind everybody, if you have comments or questions, feel free to reach out to through any of the community channels. Again, we have discuss.elastic.co. Just tag this link and we'll be happy to reach out if you have any questions trying to build your own management tool for type 1 diabetes or something similar. And of course, we're going to be doing a bunch of these. This is a weekly event, so join the party. Community.elastic.co. We are in the North America and United States virtual user group there. Follow us on Twitter and all the other places. You know where to find us. And Andreas, if you want people to reach out to you, I guess LinkedIn and GitHub would be the places.
Yeah, LinkedIn is my biggest way to get the best way to get a reach of me. I know I'm not big on Twitter or anything like that. You can find me on Twitter at HERR_KUTT as well, but I'm barely on there as well. But LinkedIn, yeah, you want to connect there? That's a great way to get in touch with me.
Awesome. Well, that's going to do it for this week's live stream session. Next week, we have a fun one, which is incident reporting, the life of an Elastic SRE with Reginald Davis. So you're going to be watching how Elastic keeps Elastic running and how we respond to incidents and emergencies. But Andreas, once again, thank you so much for hanging out with us for an hour, and everyone have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.